Hey there, it is Saturday, so it's movie night, and I'm here to present another quarantine quadruple feature for your viewing pleasure. My name is Paul. I've just finished my 26th week of quarantine, and this week was another doozy. A whole lot happened this week, proving that this week was going to be just as unpredictable and insane as every other week that we've had so far. So right now, the country is on fire. Quite literally, there are hundreds of fires all across the country. If you saw any of these photos coming out of San Francisco the past couple days, the sky is bright orange. I mean, it looks like the sky in Blade Runner 2049. It's absolutely insane. Here in Los Angeles, the sky is tinged with smoke all the time. When you look at your weather app on your phone and it says the air quality, it just says smoke. I mean, it looks like the beginning of The Wizard of Oz. It's sepia and it feels like it's overcast. It feels like the sun's about to go down. Even though it's like noon, the sun looks like this red blister in the sky. It's insane. And I mean, for any climate change deniers that are still out there hanging on, the evidence is just right in front of your face. The climate is changing drastically day by day. This is not how it's supposed to be, and we need to take steps to reverse all of this insane shit that's going on in the world. Bob Woodward released his book on Trump with a series of interviews, like 18 interviews he did over a number of months with Trump. And the big news there is way back in February on tape, Trump is saying this virus, he knows how deadly it is. He knows how dangerous it is. It's way worse than the flu. It's an airborne virus. So he knew all of this stuff about it and still downplayed it to the public so that the stock market wouldn't take a shit. And he didn't want to cause a panic, is what he said, as if that hasn't happened over the past 6 months anyway. So obviously, Trump does not care how many people die, and all of his supporters have just been doing some insane mental gymnastics to justify his actions. And now, because the world is crazy and everyone's a bad guy now, Bob Woodward is under fire for not releasing those tapes sooner, which could have arguably saved some lives. And should he have? Yeah, of course he should have. Would it have made a difference? I mean, probably not to his supporters, at least, not to the people who are denying the severity of coronavirus with every breath they have, not to these anti-maskers. And on top of everything else, today was September 11th. I'm actually recording this on Friday. So all day on social media, which admittedly I should not be on during a pandemic, because it's just the most hateful, conspiracy theory laden, toxic place imaginable. But everywhere on social media it was like, never forget, never forget. And that's true, we shouldn't. It's been 19 years since the tragedy of September 11th, where we lost almost 3,000 Americans. But we are now reaching nearly 200,000 Americans dead from coronavirus. That's like 65 September 11ths. And it's not getting the same type of public grieving that September 11th had. And I don't know, it's crazy to think how we're going to look back on this in the future, how we're going to look back on this whole year, the way we look back on September 11th now, when this is exponentially worse considering the amount of lives lost. It's just crazy. And you know, a lot of the people posting shit like never forget and September 11th was like the worst thing that's ever happened. You know, a lot of them are also turning around and being like, this virus isn't that bad. I don't know anyone who's died from it, you know. So, the world just continues to be the most complicated and frustrating and depressing place imaginable. And sports are kind of starting back up again. I think baseball has been going in the bubble, and basketball has been going on as well. And football just started a couple days ago. And I guess they had an audience. Like, I don't know how they were doing social distancing or whatever. During the first game that was being played between Kansas and Texas, I don't know the names of the teams, they all linked arms in solidarity for a moment of silence in support of Black Lives Matter. A very beautiful gesture. And the audience fucking booed them. They booed racial harmony because the world is terrible. And apparently that's no place for athletes to make these kinds of I don't know. But anyway, we're going to talk about sports today. A couple weeks ago, we did a quadruple feature on the magic of going to the movies, because going to the movies is actually what I miss most about the old world. Just a couple days ago, yesterday, in fact, Thursday, was actually 6 months since I've seen a movie in theaters. And the last movie I saw in theaters was actually a sports movie. It was The Way Back, starring Ben Affleck, which is actually really good. I liked it a lot. It's kind of more of a drama about addiction and recovery than it is about basketball, but he's coaching a basketball team, which is kind of his outlet to kind of do his best to get clean from alcohol. But it's a pretty strong movie, directed by Gavin O'Connor, who does a lot of really good sports dramas, one we're going to be looking at today. So I have a lot of friends that miss sports. I have a group of friends that I chat with every week, and we'll have very long conversations, and we'll talk about movies where me and a couple other guys will do a majority of the talking. We'll also talk a lot about sports where I just kind of sit back and listen, and they do a majority of the talking. And then sometimes we'll talk about sports movies as well, where we'll all have a big conversation. And we're going to be talking about sports movies today, because as much as I don't like sports, and as much as I don't really know anything about sports, I love sports movies. And even though I don't really care for sports, I still recognize the importance that they have for so many people in the world. Going to these sporting events is something that a lot of people miss. I even miss going to sporting events. As much as I don't really care for watching the sports, I love going and watching games with my friends. The food is always really good, and I love watching passionate people be passionate about something they love. So while I'm not as invested in the actual game, all of the people around me who are very invested in the game, I love that. I love that type of unbridled passion that people have for a subject that they care for deeply. Like, I have that love for cinema, and I appreciate the people who have that for sports. So I like going and being around that type of unbridled passion and love. My dad used to get season tickets every year to the Diamondbacks. So I've been to dozens and dozens and dozens of baseball games throughout my life because my dad loved them. I'm wearing a Diamondbacks hat right now after they changed their colors. This is actually the only piece of sports apparel that I own, so I threw it on for this one. In fact, back in 2001, when the Diamondbacks won the World Series, I was actually at some of the World Series games with my dad. So it was pretty cool. And I guess now that I think of it, they were playing against the New York team, and the world was kind of rooting for New York because New York really needed the victory after September 11th, and then the Diamondbacks won. So I guess, you might be thinking that I'm wearing this hat on September 11th as a slight on New York, and I'm absolutely not. I'm just kind of making that connection right now. It's just the only baseball hat that I have. It's the only piece of baseball clothing that I have. But I mean, fuck it. It was really exciting when they won. So not really knowing very much about sports has really increased my love of sports films, especially the ones that are based on true stories, because I can actually really get into the suspense of, are they going to win? Are they going to lose this championship or whatever? For example, recently, actually at the beginning of quarantine, I watched The Last Dance, that brilliant documentary about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, about this streak of championships that they were going for. They were going for 6 championships, and the amazing thing for me was I didn't know if they got it or not. So it was like 10 episodes, like 10 hours long, and the whole time I was like, I just need to plow through this because I'm going to mention to someone I'm watching it, and they're just going to kind of casually spoil it for me. But it was very exciting for me because I didn't really know the twists and turns of that team. I didn't know the drama. I didn't know the games they were going to win. I didn't know the games they were going to lose. I didn't know if they were going to secure 6 championships in a row or 5 or whatever. So my kind of like dearth of sports knowledge has really kind of added to my enjoyment of these movies. It's kind of an advantage to my ignorance, I suppose. But there's tons and tons of sports movies out there. So how am I going to narrow this down to 4 movies? So the way I decided to do this is I picked the 4 biggest sports in America: football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. With the exception of like wrestling or boxing or UFC type stuff, I pushed all of that out because we're gonna have a different night where I look at fighting movies. So I picked my favorite football movie, baseball movie, basketball movie, and my favorite hockey movie. I picked 4 wildly different films for this, each one from a different decade. We're gonna start with football, with maybe my favorite sports movie of all time. And I love this movie because it's just absolutely insane. It's Oliver Stone's Any Given Sunday. Any Given Sunday is perfect for Oliver Stone's wild sensibilities. I feel like Oliver Stone is best when he takes his very grand, almost operatic style of storytelling and synthesizes it through a topic that is also insane and big enough to let him really do his best to tackle. Something like Vietnam or a murder spree or football. And football really baffles me. It's these giant men that are smashing into each other and giving each other concussions and killing themselves and giving themselves brain damage and really shortening their lives for our entertainment and obviously for huge paychecks and for the glory of winning. I don't get putting your life in danger for something like that. So it really fascinates me, the types of people that are interested in football. And I think Any Given Sunday really tackles every interesting aspect of football that there is. So obviously it deals a lot with the players and the variety of different types of players. It deals with the egos and the attitudes and sex and drugs and the players that become really famous and almost like launch into rock stardom. So there's like a rookie player played by Jamie Foxx who they find out is really great, and then he becomes the star player, and he's sort of replacing the star quarterback who's older, played by Dennis Quaid, and he's kind of on his way out. So there's a rising star in the game, and he becomes really arrogant and cocky, and he starts rapping, and he starts treating the other players like shit, and the feuds that he has with the coach, played by Al Pacino. So it also delves into drama with like the general managers and the assistant coaches and the doctors that travel with them, the sports doctors, I'm sure there's a name for that, and all kinds of different tiers of success of the players that are on the team. The scope of this movie is very wide. They really capture a lot of interesting team dynamics with Any Given Sunday. It's maybe not as inspirational as sports movies typically get, because sports movies can get very, very cheesy, and we're going to watch a few kind of more inspirational sports movies, but it doesn't go for the typical sports inspiration as much as the other ones. This one is much more of a big, entertaining, pessimistic view on sports, but also it celebrates kind of the beauty of it as well, and the level of competition that some of these people have, and the almost level of artistry that they view them playing with. So I think Any Given Sunday is fucking entertaining. It is such an entertaining spectacle, and I think it just perfectly captures the insanity of what I view football to be. So that's going to be our first movie by Oliver Stone, Any Given Sunday. Movie number 2, baseball. There's a lot of baseball movies. Most of them are pretty schmaltzy and about the love of the game. This movie, I think, is absolutely brilliant, and I think it's easily the best baseball movie ever made, even though it doesn't really show that much baseball going on. Moneyball by Bennett Miller with a script by Aaron Sorkin. So never would I have thought that a movie about one of the most boring sports that's out there, but also taking out most of the sports drama and filling it with math and statistics would be a fascinating watch. But this is all behind the scenes on how Billy Beane, I think his name is, played by Brad Pitt, went and traded around people on the teams to build up a perfect team for playing. I think he coaches for like the Oakland A's. I don't know anything about sports. And it's about a long streak of games that they had because he was able to build their team so effectively. And the movie really tackles teams that are successful because of their budgets. Now, the closest thing I have to sports experience is that I competed in speech and debate. And in speech and debate, there are teams that you compete with that seem to have unlimited budgets. They have 50, 60, 70 students on the team, 100 students. They have an unlimited coaching staff. They have what seems like an unlimited budget to send them to as many tournaments as they need, get them suits that are as sharp and styled as possible, to get them everything they need to be able to compete as successfully as they can. And then there are teams that don't have that, and they're a little scrappier, like the team I came from. We had to kind of rely on ourselves to get to tournaments, and our team had a budget, but it wasn't very it wasn't very big. It couldn't really send us everywhere we wanted to go. It couldn't accomplish everything we needed to accomplish. Like, we had to pay for all of our own materials to compete. And I'm not going to really get too much into that, but the movie really resonates with me because it shows a small, scrappy team that doesn't have a lot of money, and they have to play with their minds more so than they have to play with their straight up baseball skills. Money can buy you the best baseball team, right? And so you have to fight them a different way if you don't have money. And that's what this is all about, kind of the disparity between baseball teams that have a lot of money and teams that don't, apparently, like the Oakland A's. Also, this movie stars Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill and Brad Pitt have a phenomenal chemistry. I mean, this is a buddy movie that you would not expect to just enjoy these two very different guys talking about baseball and math and statistics. It sounds like a boring movie. Absolutely riveting, very moving. Directed by Bennett Miller after he came off the success of Capote, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman. And he's not a really super visual, stylized, slick director. He just kind of directs very well, but stands back and just directs as effectively as he could when you have a really, really strong script. And it's a great script, and he directs it perfectly for the type of movie that it is. And I just love Moneyball. It was like my favorite movie of 2011, I think it came out. I think it's a really brilliant film. It was one of the best of the decade, and it's my favorite baseball movie. One of my favorite sports movies as well. So our first movie was from the 90s. 1999, which we've talked about quite a few times because 1999 is like the best year for movies. Now we're going back to the 80s for our basketball movie. Again, a lot of really great basketball movies, and I've chosen kind of a weird one, but it's easily the basketball movie I've watched the most in my life, and in my opinion, the most entertaining. Also just quintessential 80s. You may have guessed it from the kind of weird shirt I'm wearing, but we are going to be watching Teen Wolf. Michael J. Fox, who's at the peak of his fame. It's after Back to the Future, and a really weird choice for him. Kind of coming-of-age teen comedy with some kind of horror elements thrown in, because some of the werewolf's transformation stuff is a little creepy, and his eyes glow red and his voice gets deep. You can see the movie as a big allegory for puberty, how your body is changing, how you can't really understand it, and it's very scary. But watching Michael J. Fox as the Teen Wolf when he's in his full, ridiculous, hairy transformation is so fun. I think this is such an entertaining movie. It holds up. I watched it so many times through my childhood. It's also got some really good basketball drama, very similar to Any Given Sunday, with the rising star on the team getting too big for his britches and too good for the rest of the team. There's a similar arc with Michael J. Fox. When he starts playing as the Teen Wolf, he's amazing at basketball, but does he want his success to come strictly from this kind of weird power that he's encountered, or does he actually want to be a good teammate and a player on his own terms as a human? It sounds so stupid when you kind of talk about the drama of it, but there's also like really good basketball scenes in Teen Wolf. I mean, it's like the final game is very dramatic and suspenseful and really, really well done. So I think it's just a great sports movie in general. Teen Wolf, a lot of fun, quintessential 80s. My favorite basketball movie as well. Okay, our final movie we're gonna watch is hockey. Hockey doesn't have as many choices. There are still some pretty good hockey movies. Slapshot is great. Mystery Alaska by Jay Roach is really solid. My favorite hockey movie by the same director of The Way Back, Gavin O'Connor, is actually Miracle. Miracle is about like the underdog team at the Olympics when they're going against the Russians, who have won unbelievable amount of Olympic titles in a row, and now there's this scrappy little team from America that has to go against them, and they really, really want to like break that streak and bring home the gold for America. The coach of the American team, played by Kurt Russell, one of my favorite actors of all time. Absolutely love Kurt Russell. Funny enough, I didn't actually connect these on purpose, but I was talking about Speech earlier and tying it into Moneyball. This movie was introduced to me by one of my teammates on the Speech team, who showed it to our whole team as a way to kind of inspire the scrappy underdog team that doesn't really have as big of a budget, doesn't really have as many people on the team. My friend Victor, and he was like, "Oh, everyone watch this movie," and I was kind of like, ugh, an inspirational Disney movie. I wasn't really into those, but this one is really, really solid. Gavin O'Connor, he's gotten really good at directing these sports dramas, and this was the first one that he did. And then he would go on to do Warrior as well, which is brilliant. And it's just very feel good for me just because I associate it with so many of my teammates from speech. This is the most traditional kind of sports film of the four that I've chosen, but I think it's a really great hockey movie. So those are the four big sports that we have in America: football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. And today we are going to watch Oliver Stone's Any Given Sunday for football, Bennett Miller's film from Aaron Sorkin's screenplay Moneyball for baseball. For basketball, we've chosen Teen Wolf, and then for hockey, Gavin O'Connor's Miracle. So those are the four movies that we're going to watch for our sports movies. So I hope you enjoy them, sports fans. I've always liked that phrase, sports fans. Hey, sports fans. I don't think I can pull it off. I don't think anyone can pull it off, really, but those are the movies that we're going to be watching, sports fans. If you're watching along, I hope you enjoy them. I'm sure if you are a big sports fanatic that I didn't get to one of your favorite sports movies, but I picked the four that I enjoy the most. So thanks for watching. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're watching great movies, watching sports on TV if you partake. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.